Hey guys, welcome to Fearless Cooking. I'm glad that you're joining me today, and I look forward to cooking with you. So today we're going to do what I call sweet potato hash. And I really like this meal because I like the flexibility of it, right? We're gonna use sweet potato, bell pepper, and whatever color bell pepper you want to use. If you like the green ones, fantastic. You know, red, yellow, orange, kind of take your pick. We're also going to use a jalapeno, and I'm using a pound of ground pork, but ground pork, beef, lamb, turkey, chicken, any of it. If you're going to use chicken or turkey, I would probably recommend using dark meat instead of the ground breast, just because the dark meat is going to be a little more forgiving. It's not going to have as great a tendency to dry out. We're also going to use a shallot and a clove of garlic, and we'll prep those. And whenever I send the instructions out and say, hey, we're going to do the prep for this week's, like during the event, any of the spices and stuff, go ahead and measure those out. Because
ahead of time?
Yeah, because you guys are going to hear me say this probably till you're tired of hearing it, or just aware that you start doing things automatically this way. But the whole mise en place piece, I think, is critical for enjoying cooking. Okay, I mean, I think some people are never going to enjoy it. They just have convinced themselves, I hate to cook, which I don't. To me, it's unfortunate, right? Because everybody's going to eat, and to me, if you embrace cooking, then you've got a lot more control over what you eat and the quality of what you eat. But anyway, when I do mise en place, what I want to do first of all is make sure it's like read that if I'm going to follow some instructions, or even if I'm not following them, if I want to be kind of guided by them, I want to read through them and kind of see, all right, what are they trying to do, right? Then I want to figure out what, I tell you what, I'll save this part for a while when we start going through. But what I want us to do is get everything prepped ahead of time. So we're going to slice
There's a couple of ingredients you forgot to name. You want to finish?
I'm sorry, shiitakes, okay? Salt and pepper, we're just going to do it kind of as, like we'll salt and pepper as we go along. I'm going to put some spinach in, like as it gets towards the end. And then I'm using avocado oil for my heating. I'm going to top it with some slices of avocado, some cilantro, and some little cherry tomatoes. And then I'm going to fry an egg up to go on top. So that's kind of our total ingredients. Okay. I've got a gigantic sweet potato here. I'm not sure I'm going to use all of that sweet potato. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut it up and figure out, all right, how much do I think will like cover it and not crowd the bottom of the pan? That's going to be the determinant for how much of this thing I use, right?
Okay.
Whoa, run away. I lost my bell pepper. I guess we need to re-rinse this.
Yes, yes.
Even though I know that floor is clean enough that you can eat off of it, I'm not going to attempt it. So here we go. All right, the case of the runaway produce. All right, so let's get started on the sweet potato. And before I do that, I'm gonna hit the knife real quick with the honing steel.
I can't remember if you named all the spices that.
Yeah, so the spices, there's a half a teaspoon of cumin, a half a teaspoon of sweet smoked paprika, and a half a teaspoon of chili powder. And that's just kind of a default. You can vary that how spicy or how strong of spice flavor you want. So what I'm going to do is just cut this end is kind of raunchy looking, so I'll cut that off. And I'm going to cut this little end off here, and then
you're not going to skin it?
No, I never skin sweet potatoes. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut like fairly thin slices. So once, like I'm always talking about, I'm going to use the kind of the knuckle part of my finger as the guide. And I tell you what, now, because this thing is, if I try to cut this thing in half, which I like to do when I'm doing, the problem is it's so big, the knife's going to get stuck. So I'm just going to cut the slices off, and then I'm going to, in essence, kind of create cubes. I'll show you what I'm going to.
But they're pretty thin slices.
They're pretty thin slices. So that's, what is that? That's about maybe a quarter of an inch, third of an inch.
Okay.
Normally, the end of my finger is about an inch. And, the main thing is just let the knife do the work, right? Just kind of go forward with it.
I think that's...
Yeah, I don't know what this is. Let's see how much this is going to do for us. So then what I do is I'll just stack a few of them. All right, same thing, use the guide. And I'm kind of doing ribbons, and then I'm going to cut them again so that we've got cubes. Don't make it, don't make the stack too high, or you got a greater tendency of it like sliding off, and you all of a sudden now like running the risk of messing up a finger. All right, so that's the size cube that I'm talking about. And if yours isn't exactly that size, it's not a big deal, okay? But if you have great big cubes of potato, it's going to take longer for those to cook.
Oh,
okay. All right, so just keep going here. And one of the things that it's crazy. This is a part of cooking that I find enjoyable. And I know somebody's be like, how the hell do you find cutting vegetables enjoyable? For me, it's almost meditative, right? It's something I have to pay attention to. And so, it's kind of hard to be thinking too much about anything else while I'm doing this. I mean, it's not like it's mentally taxing or anything. It's just, okay, kind of pay attention. I was doing a Headspace deal earlier today.
A meditation?
A meditation. And the guy talks about beginner's mind. And I was like, oh, what's that mean? And he said, some people go into meditation and they're like, well, okay, yesterday's session was really good, so I want to make sure that today's, he goes, no, you're missing the point. You show up each time and you kind of experience what you're going to experience that day. And I think with cooking, it's kind of the same thing. It's like you're paying attention to what you're doing, okay? You're eating and cooking with a curiosity, right? So, it's like, what I was starting to say earlier is what are things like, depending on what you're cooking, one of the suggestions that I make is thinking about, okay, what are the variables as far as how this thing's going to turn out, right? So like one of them is, if you're using a protein, or an animal protein, what's the quality of the meat? Okay, is it grass fed? Is it Wagyu? All of those things are gonna have some bearing on how the meal's gonna turn out. If you're gonna do fish, or really any protein, are you coming straight from the fridge, right, throwing it into a pan, or have you let it come closer to room temperature? Because each time you do that, it's gonna change. In other words, if you cook fish one time and you've got a piece of fish that's this thick and it's come straight from the fridge, or like I did once, straight off of the ice into the skillet or into the oven, it took a lot longer than if I let it sit out and come closer to room temperature. So those are just things to kind of pay attention to each time. All right, so this is, I'm going to do just a couple more slices, and then I think that's going to have us our sweet potatoes covered. And then I'll do something else with this in the next day or so that I don't waste sweet potato.
Have a beautiful sweet potato like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And sweet potato for me, it's like, okay, it just kind of screams fall.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the things that we're going to start doing in here is starting to kind of cover some of the things that I like to fix around Thanksgiving. So we will, I'm going to, like next week, I'm traveling next Sunday. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and record it earlier in the week. I'm going to do a sausage with onions and grapes. It was something, I think it was New York Times. I got the recipe, and you know, I don't cook a whole lot with fruit, but it's like, this one's kind of interesting. We'll do that one. But I'm also going to do mashed celery root, because I think it tastes so much more interesting than mashed potatoes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
very healthy.
Yeah, it's healthy, but you know, the other thing is, it's like you can have it as kind of an adjunct, right? So it's like you can still do mashed potatoes. All right, so now I'm doing the bell pepper. And what I do with it is I just cut it in half, and then I just use my fingers to pull the stem out, and then I will make sure that I kind of knock out the seeds. And then these ribs that are in here, I just tear those out. Now, you know, you can take a knife and trim them out. For me, that's just like, okay, it's like kind of overly fussy. It's not to, you know, criticize somebody that does it that way, if that's what, you know, like, I'm sure I waste a little bit of it, but it's like, it's a lot faster. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just.
So you just turned them over on there?
Yeah, I just put it down to where I've got kind of the edges, and I'm going to cut it, you know, from like through the rounded part. Okay. I don't know how to explain it if somebody's.
So those are also about a ½ inch, probably?
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm just going to do kind of a rough chop on those. I'll show you what I'm talking about there. And this is also why it's helpful to have a sharp knife, because there's something about cutting bell pepper. If you have a dull knife, it really is resistant.
Okay, so now what do you
Okay, so now I've just turned them on, you know, like perpendicular to the knife edge. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those I've got together, and I'm just, you know, once again, just kind of getting it'll be a little bit larger cube than the sweet potatoes.
Okay. But roughly the same size, maybe?
Yeah, roughly the same size as each other, but it's probably about half again as big as the sweet potato. Okay. The sweet potato is just it's something that takes just longer to cook because it's so much denser. Because you don't really want crunchy sweet potatoes. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have them super soft, but you don't want them raw. Raw bell pepper is fine. It's not kind of, you know, it'll just be kind of an interesting texture. All right, I'm just going to use a smaller bowl here. And, you know, using the bench scraper. This bell pepper it's a wandering bell pepper.
It is. It really kind of wants to.
All right, so got that one done. All right, so now I'm going to cut the jalapeno in half.
Okay.
Now, to it, let me slow down just for a second, let folks catch up. Yeah, today's not a wine day. Today just felt like a Topo Chico day. So, you know, I need to be reminded of being thankful for having easy access to Topo Chico, because my daughter lives in DC, or one of my daughters lives in DC, and she said, you know, it's like really hard to find Topo Chico there. And you know, it's a great. So
tell us what you're doing with the jalapeno there.
Okay. So I cut it in half, and then I cut the stem off, and I'm just going to use the spoon to scrape the seeds out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the other thing with Topo Chico is it's a great it's a great mixer, right? So tequila with a half a lime And Topo Chico is an excellent drink, as well as with gin. But you know, that's I'm sure a lot of people figured that out. All right, let me wash the jalapeno off my hands. Now, the danger of drinking Topo Chico is I will do everything I can to suppress belching during Fearless Cooking. But yeah, I'm sure my wife and those watching will appreciate it.
Well, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, so what's the plan?
So now what I'm going to do with the jalapenos is I'm going to cut them kind of into sort of like a match. So about
long. You're cutting
yeah. So I'm cutting along like probably I'm doing it about a third.
Okay.
Then I'm just going to put them all perpendicular to the knife, and I'm just going to cut them all, probably half an inch.
I can smell those.
Yeah, you'll really smell them whenever I stick them in the skillet. All right, so let me grab one more little bowl. So I talk about mise en place. I didn't have the bowls out. I'll have an extra one in case I've forgotten something else. All right, once again, now I probably should wash my hands again. Yeah, you only make that mistake once when you have been handling jalapenos and then rub your eye, which I have done before. And I don't recommend it.
No, it's quite painful.
No, it is quite painful.
And what are you going to be cutting up next?
So next what I'm going to cut up is the mushrooms.
Okay.
And I have already trimmed the very ends off, okay? Now all I'm going to do is slice them. So, if you haven't, at the very end, a lot of times they're kind of like dirty. I don't wash my mushrooms, okay? And what I'm going to do with them.
So if there's dirt and stuff on them, what do you do?
I just like knock it off with a paper towel, okay? Because they will definitely soak up water.
Got it.
I'm not going to, like last week, I think it was last week or week before, where we put water in with the mushrooms because we're cooking them down. With these, I'm just going to toss them in after we get the meat cooking.
Okay.
So I'll tell you the order here in just a minute.
Okay.
All right. So when I'm doing mushrooms, I just want to make sure I hold them kind of like press them down so they're not moving around. And once again, just use that, my fingers as the guide. So these are, what is that? Probably about a half an inch. And here we go.
You're just going to have long, so you're not cutting those in half again.
No,
okay.
I'm not, mincing these. I'm just slicing them.
Okay.
Okay. And see, this has got some dirt on it, so I'll just knock it off on this gorgeous clean floor.
Okay.
If you're not looking at this at home, I'm getting a glare right now. All right. Let's see. Let's do it. That's not going to be on. All right.
Could you use other kind of mushrooms?
Oh, yeah.
Shiitakes? Any kind?
Yeah. I mean, creminis, white button, what's the other one? That's the portobellos. I have just really gotten to where I'm a big fan of shiitakes. I know that there's supposedly they help with immune health. They're used in Chinese medicine a lot.
Shiitake mushrooms?
And I just, I really got to where I like the flavor a lot. I go to Central Market usually at least once a week, and they usually have them there. And then at the Barton Creek Farmers Market, Lewis is my mushroom guy. And so I always stop by and see how Lewis is doing and, get some shiitakes from him. And that's, you guys have heard me talk about that a lot, but I really think it's important to kind of know the people that are making our food. And, it's like they're, and it's, if you're not close to the Barton Creek one, in fact, I think wherever you live, find the farmer's market that's near you and support those folks, because otherwise, we're not, to me, you kind of vote with your purchases. And if you're supporting people that are, doing a good job, then it's like, I think it's important that we have food supply that is local.
And that we can trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that people are, it's like they're putting the capital at risk. They're working crazy hours to kind of bring that food. And I also just feel like if you're not doing that, you're missing out, right? Because the guy at Richardson Farms that I buy now, most of the protein I use, he also supplies a lot of the real high-end restaurants in Austin. All right, so that's how many mushrooms I ended up with. I weighed these beforehand. These are just like, they're like 7.5 ounces. So basically that's a half a pound. All right, so now then we've got we got to do the shallots.
So now you're going to do the
So
shallot.
yeah, so all I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take the shallot and cut it in half, like lengthwise. And that makes it a lot easier to peel the skin off. And it's funny, I never used shallots like a couple of years ago, and I forgot what turned me on to them the first time. But it's just, I like the flavor, I like the size, and I still use onions every once in a while. But these things are just, to me, they're handy. And, once again, I get them at Central Market, and, every time I go in there, I just grab a few. And I'm just using the knife to get that skin off. If I'm making a sauce that I'm going to strain, I don't take the skin off. I just throw everything in there and then strain all the solids out. But with this, since I'm going to be, we're going to be eating it, I don't want to be trying to eat shallot skin. Just cut the little end off there, and then let's see if I can. Yeah, probably use the knife. It makes it easier. I'm sure there's some kind of a hack for this. I haven't figured it out yet.
Your hack for garlic.
Yeah, the garlic works, but I don't think smashing the shallot is necessarily the way to go. It might, but
to figure out what the hack is.
Yeah. Have a kitchen prep that does all that for you, but then that kind of takes that whole meditative quality out of it. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to go up and be a prep for my son's restaurant, so I'll be like peeling stuff there. I'm going to go spend probably a week with him sometime.
Okay.
So all right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on its side, okay, and then I'm going to have my hand off of the cutting board, and I'm just going to cut like parallel. Okay, just run, and then I'm going to do that. I'll make a second one, and now a third one. Okay, so those are just three horizontal slices through the shallot. Okay, now
I'm going to all the way through.
Yeah, but not just like almost to the end.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to take and run just diagonal. Okay, I mean not diagonal, but vertical. Like one. Let's see, probably about 5 or 6 of those. Just all right. And now I'm going to turn it perpendicular again to the blade, and I'm just going to slice through the shallot. And so what it does is it's just an easy way to get it all minced. Okay, and then I just toss the little root end. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that process now with the other half. So just going to do like 3 parallel cuts, okay, like horizontally. And then I'm just going to make, let's see, probably, let's see how many that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertical cuts. And I see a little sliver. Sometimes getting that last layer of shallot skin off is challenging. Okay, so now I've got it perpendicular, and I'm just going to slice through again. Okay, so just, you know, it's a pretty fine dice. All right, and if they're not all the same size, it's not like the end of the world. It's just, you know, I found this was a lot easier way to do it. And now I'm just going to use the end of the knife to put them in there, just because with this it would be a little harder trying to use the bench scraper. All right, so I'm putting it in a bowl so I don't have to worry about whenever I'm trying to put it in the skillet. And now then with the garlic, I tell you what, I'll wait just a second folks to catch up.
Good.
So what we've done so far, we've diced the sweet potato, we've sliced the mushrooms, we've diced the bell pepper, we seeded and well, when we seeded the bell pepper first, we seeded and took the stem out of the jalapeno and diced it. We diced the shallot, and we're getting ready to mince or dice the garlic. So I'm just going to use, I haven't, you know, bothered to take the skin or anything off of the garlic, and I'm just going to take the flat of the knife and put it on the garlic and smack it. Okay, and that just makes it a lot easier to get the skin off. So I'm going to put the skin right here, and then I'll throw it all in the trash. Okay. And then with this, I just, you know, kind of lay it where it's not going to rock on the cutting board, kind of, once again, like the mustard, just kind of press down on it. And then just like slice it kind of as fine as I can. And then I'm just going to go through and just mince that again. And I'll just use the knife to hold the tip down and just kind of rock it through it. Boy, that's strong. But I love garlic. I mean, it's, I know you don't like it so much if it's raw, but.
It doesn't like me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, it's a sulfur vegetable. And I know, what's the woman's name? I'm trying to think. Wall, I think it's Terry Wall. She is like big on making sure that you get like multiple servings of sulfur vegetables a day. She says it's like real important from immune health. And you know, she's somebody that basically used food to completely reverse some of the health issues that she has. She's an MD, and it got to where she was confined to a wheelchair, and it was actually one of those tilt wheelchairs. I think she has multiple sclerosis, and she's now, I guess, in like complete remission. And hers was a function of just literally changing how she was eating.
So you just put the garlic in with the shallot?
Yeah, because with this, I'm not gonna be putting this directly into a screaming hot pan.
Okay.
What I'm gonna do is we'll get the sweet potatoes cooking, because those are the things that I want to get kind of a brown. I want to like. We're gonna cook them undisturbed for a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So, you know, here's Mr. Mise en place over here without a spoon. I'm not gonna stir this stuff with my hands. Man.
Happily, the spoon is right there. So.
Yeah, I know, but it's still kind of embarrassing. All right, so got a wooden spoon. I'm gonna wait just a second, make sure that everybody's kind of caught up.
What's the first thing you're going to be doing here in a second so they can be prepared?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to light the stove, and I'm going to put the skillet on and put just a little bit of avocado oil on the bottom and let that get hot. And then I'm going to put the sweet potato in. We'll hit it with some salt and pepper. and then we will just let it hang out for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get this lit. Oh, there we go. That was exciting. Okay.
So a pretty large size skillet.
Yep.
Using.
Yep. Yeah, so this is, I think, about a 12-inch skillet. And I'm just going to put probably 2 tablespoons of oil.
Enough to just sort of coat the bottom?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread that out. So, and then I'm going to wait until it kind of starts to shimmer. And it's like when you look at the oil, you can see it as it gets to a certain point. I don't want it to get to where it smokes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to get it to where there's kind of this like shimmering, like you see heat coming off of the roads when it's real hot in the summer. So I'm just looking for that kind of rippling on the surface of the, and I'm starting to see it just a little bit on the surface of the oil.
And that tells you that it's getting hot enough.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be like screaming hot, but I don't want to put it in there into like cold oil. I'm trying to get it to where it completely covers the bottom of the pan. There's one spot there that's resistant. Plus, I don't think there's a level surface in this house, so it always goes to one side or another. All right, I think we're getting pretty close. Yeah.
So you're putting in the sweet potatoes.
Yeah, I'm putting the sweet potato in, and I probably cut just a little bit more than what I needed because I don't want to overcrowd the pan. I don't want them like kind of stacked on top of each other. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm just, kind of making sure I've got a single layer there. So I have a little bit of sweet potato left over to go with that sweet potato.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, and I'll just put a little salt in here. Actually, I'll go ahead and put the spices in too, because I kind of let those bloom a little. You're just kind of going to toast them almost. I'm not gonna turn it over or do anything with it. I'm just going to let it sit there.
You remind us again what spices?
Yeah, so it's paprika, cumin, and chili powder. Yeah, and I used a Colorado chili powder. I mean, there's some places you're just going to see the straight chili powder. Central Market has like different kind of flavor profiles. So, you can hear it sizzling. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let it go for probably a minute, 2 minutes, and then I'll turn it over. I'll just like kind of use the skillet. I'm not going to use the spoon right away.
Why this approach? What is this?
Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to get a little bit of a kind of a crust to form. Yeah. Yeah. Just like, if you're going to cook a steak, you let the steak sit to get the crust to form. Well, I kind of want to see if that'll happen a little bit with this. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We're just going to see what we can do. You could use I could be using a stainless steel or a cast iron skillet, and you can get it hotter. The problem that I've got here is I don't have a Vent-A-Hood that's worth a damn. And plus, then I've got my back to you guys. But without a real commercial Vent-A-Hood or just a real robust one, if you get anything where you start getting any kind of smoke buildup, that takes some of the fun out of it. So I would I would love to have a Vent-A-Hood that you know, you need to make sure everything is anchored or it would suck it out of it, but you know, not here.
So how long are you gonna,
I'm gonna, you know, probably about another 20 or 30 seconds. I'll shake this.
and then what will you do?
So once I get, then I'm gonna get it on the other side. Okay.
Okay.
And I won't let it go quite as long. Then I'll add the shallots and the garlic and the jalapenos and the bell peppers. And actually, I'll tell you what, before I do that, I'll throw the onions and the garlic in, and then I'll throw the meat in.
Oh, before you put in the other vegetables.
Yeah, because what I want to do is I want to make sure that I get the meat where that there's no pink, and then I'll add the mushrooms in.
Okay, so mushrooms will be at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the spinach.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna, so I'm just gonna kind of stir it around so that they're not like stuck on the bottom. And as I turn it, kind of flip it like this, and you can use the spoon. Yeah, I'm starting to get some crustiform, which is what I wanted. And we'll let this go for just another, say, minute.
Smells heavenly.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you know, it's that, to me, all this stuff, it smells like autumn.
Mm-hmm. Very positive.
I'll go ahead and throw the onions and garlic in, or the shallots and the garlic. Let's get those kind of distributed throughout. Okay. Now I'm going to add the meat. So what I want to do with this is I'm just going to kind of flatten it with the spoon. If I should hold that, that would make for a hell of a mess. But we're just, all I want to do is you know, make sure that there's no like pink showing when we're done.
You're not mixing it in, you're just flattening it?
Yeah, just right in the beginning. Just, okay. Yeah, I will mix it in, but it's like, it's a lot easier to mix as it starts to kind of get like cooked a little bit. So I'm just flattening it out with the spoon. I'm going to also put a little bit of salt and pepper in there. Here's my salt. You know, I definitely believe in seasoning as you go. Instead of like throwing salt or pepper in just right at the very end, I want it to like kind of build layers of flavor. We'll let that go for just another few seconds, and then we'll start to kind of incorporate it. Yeah, starting to get brown.
Brown one side, you're starting now to mix it.
And then, like I said, it's easier then to kind of start breaking it into pieces as it starts to cook. Now I'll add the bell peppers and the jalapenos. To kind of clear out a little empty spot here in the middle. I'll just drop those in there.
How come?
I don't know. First, because I want to like really punish us a little bit with the with the jalapeno. Just get that a little hot, and then I'll stir that in. Let's just have bell pepper in it. Put this in here and get this all the way. All right. I'm going to stir this in. We're getting ready to add the mushrooms.
Oh, before they cook?
Yeah, well, because this is, we're already getting rid of a lot of the pink. So in the amount of time that it's going to take for everything else to cook, that meat's definitely going to fully come up.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the peppers, but they'll.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Smells amazing.
Yeah, it's it's those spices. Well, it really, it's kind of all of it. And the mushrooms will cook down. That's one of the things with them is that they just, I think it's about half of the size, maybe even, more like, condensed than that. I probably should have decided to put like a little bit. I made some bone broth 2 days ago that would also go great in here. Another plug for my buddy at Richardson's. So they do. They grow the cows that these bones come from, but they have these big knuckle bones that are about that big around. They're about that thick, and it's got all the like collagen and stuff that comes from joints.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put 2 of those in, and an onion and some garlic and some fish sauce and what else did I put in? Oh, some ginger and some turmeric root and water, and put it in the Instapot and just let it go for 4 hours. And that stuff was absolutely fabulous. And so anything that you use it with, it just enhances the flavor. So, it would go great in here, but it's also going to make a great base for a soup. And if you don't make your own broth, I highly recommend just do it once and see the difference that it makes in what you cook with it. And every once in a while, Richardson's also has chicken feet, and chicken feet make excellent chicken broth. I probably shouldn't tell anybody because then, but I guess it's only nice to share. So
We're gonna have their chicken feet.
yeah. In fact, I was listening to something on the NPR a while back, and they were saying that has become a big profitable component of a lot of the chicken operations because there is this growing demand for chicken feet, which is interesting.
Well, it also fits the sort of snout to tail.
Yes, absolutely.
Philosophy of using every part of the animal.
Absolutely. And here's the other part that stuff is real high in is glycine and lysine. And so, historically, we've always incorporated those things into our food. It's just been, probably the last 100 years that it's like so much of our protein consumption is all around muscle meat. Well, that's not how we evolved. And it's like we miss out on a lot of the amino acid profile of the food when we just eat. And when I'm saying muscle meat, I'm talking about roast and all that stuff. If we're not doing like organ meats or bone broth, then we're missing out on a lot of the nutrients that are in the meal. Okay. In fact, there's actually some people that think that long before we were very sophisticated hunters, that we would let like large animals attack something and kill it, and then we would just use rocks before we had any other kind of tools and break the large bones apart and eat the bone marrow. And that the theory goes that gave us the nutrients necessary to grow a bigger brain. So I don't know. It's an interesting theory.
Well, tell us about what's happening in the pan there.
So all right, so
everyone should expect.
Yeah, so we're starting to see the mushrooms kind of condense down, right? So they're losing some of their moisture, and this stuff is smelling fantastic.
Amazing.
And you can smell the jalapenos, but they didn't like completely vaporize and blow us out like they are, they have a tendency to do. Now what I'm going to do is just grab some spinach and put the spinach in there.
Good to have some green in there, it just adds to the full nutritional profile.
Yeah. My whole thing is that every meal needs green, right?
Yeah.
And it's, so this way, it's like, okay, I've got kind of a meal in a skillet. And you know, you could use asparagus, you could use kale. The thing that I am a big fan of pre-washed spinach because I don't have to do anything to it, but just put it in there.
So what, you're just doing 2 big clumps, or?
Yeah, I'm just-
How much is that, do you think?
Like a giant compressed handful. You know, because that's probably a couple of cups. And then I just kind of work it in there.
Okay.
And then what I'm going to do, once we get all that in there, is then I will put some of that on a plate, and then we're going to fry an egg and top it with the fried egg. Oops.
When will you use the avocado and those other garnishes?
Whenever I plate it.
Ah, okay.
Well, that mushroom's good.
So did you sort of know it was time to add the spinach as the mushrooms were mostly done?
Yep, because there was no pink left in the meat.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, that looks like that's about ready. And now this, you know, you can cook the spinach a little longer. I think this is looking good though.
It's almost kind of wilted.
Just a little bit, but it's not completely wilted down. So what I'm going to do, and if I was doing this, you know, on the stove, I would probably go ahead and get the fried egg started. But on this, I'm just going to put some of this on a plate. Because the beauty of fried eggs is they don't take any time at all.
So colorful. It's really,
Yeah,
really
it's a gorgeous plate. And now I'm going to just take this and put it over here. And I'll take the skillet, put that on.
Oh.
Yeah, this
Need to
you
fall
kind of
out
have
there.
to, yeah, you kind of have to counterbalance it a little bit. All right, so that was like maybe a teaspoon of oil. Lid's not on there very good.
So again, enough just to coat
Yep,
the
just to
bottom.
coat the bottom. And then I'm just gonna.
So you can have the hash without the egg. This
Oh,
is
absolutely.
just a nice little
Yeah.
addition to the top.
And I managed to get a little piece of eggshell in there. And let's see, I don't know that it'll need a. There we go. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is it's nice, you know, even though, hey, it would have been great to have had this out already. I like having stuff where that it's, especially the utensils that I use in the kitchen all the time, have them to where they're just right there. Okay, so I'm not gonna like do anything with the egg until the bottom of it is completely filled in. Like I can look and still kind of see through parts of the egg.
So you're getting the whites all the way.
Uh-huh. I'm turning this down just a little bit because that flame's a little high.
When will you do your garnishes? After the egg is on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's moving. And I'm going to do this one sunny side up. You know, you can do it over easy, whatever your preference is there. So since I'm going to do that, I'm just going to let it cook a little bit more so that it won't be just completely raw. While I was doing that, I'll just cut this. And this is always like kind of an experiment. Is okay.
With the avocado here.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what I like to do is to buy them where they are hard as a baseball and just let them, and like ripen them in a paper sack. Okay, so this one, you know, most of it's pretty good. The end of it's kind of funky, so I'll just cut the end off. That's coming along nicely. And then I will just peel that off, the peel off, and then I'm just gonna slice it here in my hand. Okay, that's a little thick. All right, just have those on the side. All right, I think that egg is about ready. So, yeah, there we go. Just put that right there. And then turn that off. Get that out of the way. Put a little bit of cilantro on top.
That's a nice little fresh flavor to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
And then, you know, a few cherry tomatoes.
What color?
Yeah. All right. And oh, let's hit it with a little salt and pepper. And, you know, I didn't do that for this, but actually what would be great on the avocado is just a squeeze of lime juice on the avocado. Perfect. All right, guys, that is sweet potato hash topped with a fried egg. It was a pleasure cooking with you today, and I will get the recorded thing out for next week's, probably by Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. So anyway, have a great week, and bring a beginner's mind to cooking this week. Thanks a lot.